Lord, have mercy. This man is about to lose everything. The sentence slipped from Nora Ellis's mouth before she even realized she'd spoken. Minutes earlier, she'd witnessed something she was never meant to see. Through the glass wall of the CEO's corner office, she'd spotted Daniel Reed, billionaire property tycoon. Usually, he was the definition of public confidence, tailored suit, sharp profile, hands that controlled skyscrapers. But not this morning. Today, he was hunched over his desk, color drained from his face. Daniel stared at a thick stack of papers, right hand shaking as he lifted a pen. He hesitated, then lowered the tip toward the signature line. A sick, dropping sensation rolled through Nora's stomach, heavy and cold, before she could make sense of it. A harsh voice snapped behind her. "What the hell are you doing up here?" She spun and saw Mr. Dalton, her floor supervisor, charging down the hallway, thick-necked, flushed, breath sour with old coffee and acid. He barreled toward her like a freight train. I'm just doing my rounds, sir," Nora stammered, stepping away from the office window. "Rounds?" he sneered. "Is that what you call spying now?" "No, sir. I didn't mean, I saw you staring in there," Dalton snapped. "What were you hoping to catch? Looking for leverage? Planning to sell something to the gossip sites? People like you, always hunting shortcuts." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I wasn't, I swear. I only—" His hand moved faster than her thoughts. Smack! Pain exploded across her cheek, white-hot and blinding. She stumbled backward into her cart, a disinfectant bottle crashing loudly to the floor. Her eyes stung, vision swimming, cheek blazing. "That'll remind you where you belong," Dalton growled. "Yes, sir," she whispered, pressing shaking fingers to her face. "I'm sorry." She pushed the cart away, each step heavier than the last, like her shoes were made of stone. A few minutes later, desperate just to breathe, she slipped into Daniel Reed's office. He was gone. The leather chair sat empty behind the massive mahogany desk, the faint smell of his cologne and coffee clinging to the air, like ghosts that refused to leave. She wasn't allowed in there, not even for cleaning at that hour. Still, something made her pause. The folder lay exactly where he'd left it. Nora moved closer, heart thudding. Her eyes dropped to the title stamped across the top. Declaration of Corporate Bankruptcy, filed under Daniel Reed, Reed Urban Development. Nora's pulse jumped. She skimmed the bold numbers on the first page. Total outstanding debt, $64 million. That couldn't be right. Her brows pulled together on instinct. She traced the list of creditors, vendors, lenders, partner firms. Some names meant nothing, but one slammed into her like a fist. Meridian Supply Group. Her breath hitched. The letters blurred as memories crashed in, hard and unwelcome. She knew that name. Meridian Supply Group was the same company that had destroyed her father's small construction business years ago. They'd shipped defective materials, lied about specs, overbilled, then vanished after getting paid. He'd filed complaints. No one listened. Within a year, he'd gone bankrupt. Within 3, he was gone. Heart attack, they said. Nora always believed it was heartbreak that finished him. And now Meridian's name sat on this list, with a claim of $5.2 million. Her fingers tightened around the page. It didn't add up. She scanned more entries, 12 million, 8 million, 15 million. Her lips moved silently as she added, double-checking. 47 million, not 64. She ran the calculations again, slower, more careful. The discrepancy was too neat, too deliberate. A chill rippled across her skin. Someone had padded the debt, added fake creditors, recycled old ones, and Meridian Supply Group had no legitimate reason to be there unless someone wanted them placed. Nora swallowed, hearing her father's voice echo from years ago. If someone had warned me sooner, maybe I could have fought back. The office was so quiet it rang. She reached into her cart, grabbed a pen, and yanked free a sticky note. She scribbled quickly. Mr. Reed, the totals on page 7 don't match. Real debt is 47 them, not 64. Someone's lying. Please recheck. She signed it only. A friend. Hands trembling. She smoothed it atop the folder and straightened the pages. Then she dabbed the faint smear of blood from her cheek, lifted her chin, and walked out. In the basement, she clocked out at 7:48 a.m. Instead of heading straight to her battered sedan. She lingered in the concrete shadows of the garage. The echo of the slap still rang in her ear, her pulse still racing. Beneath the fear, something sharper simmered. Anger. Not only for this morning, but for what had been done to her father. She leaned against a concrete pillar and waited. 4:01 a.m. A black Mercedes slipped into the garage. Daniel Reed stepped out. He looked nothing like his magazine covers. No polished smile, no effortless swagger. He looked hollow, exhausted, like the ground had given way beneath him overnight. He passed her hiding spot without seeing her. Nora stayed silent, clutching her bag, only hoping he'd notice the note. At 9:17 a.m., her phone buzzed, unknown number. Her throat tightened as she answered quietly. "Hello?" "Miss Ellis," a familiar male voice. "This is Daniel Reed. Are you still in the building?" Her chest constricted. Yes, I am." "Don't leave," he said urgently. "Please, I need to speak with you right now." The call cut off. Moments later, hurried footsteps echoed down the ramp. Daniel appeared, slightly out of breath, gripping the yellow sticky note in his trembling hand. "Was this you?" he asked, voice cracked. "Did you write this?" Nora couldn't find words. She only nodded. Daniel Reed, Billionaire CEO, dropped heavily to his knees on the cold garage floor in front of her. Tears gathered in his eyes. "You just saved my life," he whispered. "You saved everything." Nora Ellis, cheek still bruised, shaking with fury and fear, stood frozen, seen, finally. If you felt Nora's pain, hit like and drop where you're watching from. You never know, someone near you might be watching too. Daniel knelt like a man whose universe had stopped spinning, the sticky note shaking between his fingers. His expensive slacks darkened at the knees where they pressed into concrete dust. He stared up at Nora with a nakedness she'd never imagined on someone like him. No ego, no armor. Just a man with everything on the line, seeing her clearly. Nora couldn't move. The blood on her cheek had dried. Her fingertips still tingled from the hit. But all her attention was locked on him, the billionaire looking at her like she mattered. "I didn't mean to interfere," she stammered softly. Daniel shook his head. "You didn't interfere. You intervened." She took a half step back, every instinct barking at her to run, hide, vanish like she'd always done. But something pinned her there. The note, the company name on that list, the memory of her father. He rose slowly, brushing grit from his knees. His voice steadied, though it still trembled around the edges. "Come with me." Nora blinked. "Sir, I need to come back upstairs," he insisted. "You saw the figures, the paperwork. Someone needs to answer for them, and I want you in the room when they do." His gaze locked with hers. "Please." Nora swallowed. But You're not just anything, he cut in. You're the only one who actually noticed. She glanced toward the exit. Her aging Ford sat in the distance, safe and familiar. Going back to that life, scrubbing other people's floors, swallowing every word, suddenly felt suffocating. Fear whispered, "You don't belong in his world. You'll only complicate everything." Daniel seemed to sense her hesitation. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "So am I. But whatever happens today, I promise you this. No one lays a hand on you again while you're under my roof." Nora winced, cheek throbbing. She nodded slowly. "Okay." The elevator ride back to the 24th floor felt longer than any she'd ever taken. They stood side by side, eyes fixed on the rising numbers. Neither spoke, but something fragile stretched between them. Not trust yet, but recognition. When the doors slid open, daylight spilled into the hallway like it had been waiting. The executive floor was still empty, quiet as a church. The scent of leather chairs, fresh coffee, and polished glass wrapped around them as Nora followed Daniel to his office. He moved straight behind his desk and flipped through the folder. This time, his gaze traveled slowly, carefully. When he reached page 7, he lifted it, a faint, haunted smile tugging at his lips. 47 million, he murmured, not 64. He looked at Nora. "You said someone was lying. You were right, and I have a pretty good idea who'd dare." Nora stayed quiet. She wasn't ready to voice that name out loud. Not yet. Daniel grabbed his phone and dialed. "Karen," he said when his assistant answered. "Is Grant in yet?" A pause. "Good. I want him in my office at 10 sharp. No delays. And pull security logs for this floor from before 8 a.m. today." He hung up, turning back. "Lucas Grant is my partner," Daniel said. 15 years. We built this place together." His jaw flexed. "Which is why, if this betrayal is real, it costs him everything." Nora hesitated, and then asked quietly, "And if it isn't him?" Daniel met her gaze. "Then I'll apologize." He exhaled slowly. "But for now, I'm trusting my gut the same way you trusted yours." He motioned to the leather couch. Nora lowered herself carefully, terrified of touching anything, but it was far too late to retreat. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said, taking the seat across from her. She nodded. "What made you actually look at those numbers? What made you care enough to run them?" Nora stared down at her hands, resting stiffly in her lap. "My dad," she said quietly. "He was a contractor, hands in concrete, not suits. Trusted people way too easily. Years ago, some supply company scammed him with cheap materials and fake invoices. Nobody helped, not the union, not the bank, nobody. He lost everything," she continued. "He died thinking no one cared." Daniel leaned forward. "What was the company called?" Nora lifted her eyes, steadier now. "Meridian Supply Group." He flinched. "I saw the name in your bankruptcy file. 5.2 million. Daniel leaned back, lips pressed tight. "That's impossible. We haven't used them in over 10 years. "They're on the list," Nora replied. "And if that line is fake, someone used them to inflate the debt on purpose." "To pad the fall," he finished. "Jesus." A knock interrupted them. Karen poked her head in. "Mr. Reed, I checked. Only one person accessed this floor before 8 a.m. today." Her eyes flicked to Nora, puzzled. "Her." Daniel nodded once. "That's what I needed. Thanks, Karen." The door shut behind her. Daniel looked at Nora, a voice softer now. "You're the only one who had every reason to look away. and didn't. Nora lowered her gaze. Honestly, I almost left it alone. But you didn't, he said. She stayed silent. Daniel rose. You don't have to speak in the meeting. Just be there. Just knowing what you saw might be enough to rattle Grant. Nora took a slow breath. What if he calls me a liar? Daniel gave a half smile. He lifted the yellow sticky note. Then I'll hold this up. He lifted the yellow sticky note. And tell them this tiny square of paper stopped a billion-dollar empire from being stolen. A tiny smile curved Nora's lips. It was just a note. No, he said firmly. It was a warning, a line drawn, and now we stand on the right side of it. The wall clock clicked to 9:42 a.m. 18 minutes until Lucas Grant walked in, and the truth either torched everything or finally set something right. At exactly 9:59 a.m., silence swallowed the 24th floor of Reed Tower. The glass-lined hallway outside Daniel's office gleamed beneath flawless lights, the kind that never flickered, never dimmed. A luxury Nora had never known in any place she'd lived. She sat stiffly on the leather couch in the CEO's office, fingers laced tight, eyes pinned to a glinting spot on the polished floor. Her cheek ached, the dried sting whispering she didn't belong here. The folded sticky note said otherwise, across the room. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks. He looked calm on the surface, but his tightened jaw and darting glances at the clock betrayed the storm underneath. Whatever happens, he said quietly, don't let him shrink you. Nora looked up. Sir? He held her gaze. Men like Grant are used to owning the room, making everyone else feel like they're the ones who should apologize. Not today. She nodded, throat dry. She'd rehearsed what she might say, but words weren't what scared her. It was the look she feared, the same one Dalton had given her. That silent message. You don't belong here. You should have stayed in your lane. At exactly 10 a.m., the intercom crackled. Karen's voice sounded crisp but tense. Mr. Reed, Mr. Grant is here. Daniel gave Nora one final glance, then stepped behind his desk. Send him in. The door opened moments later. Lucas Grant entered like a man expecting to finalize a victory. Silver hair slicked back, gray suit immaculate, cufflinks flashing with each movement. Well, he drawled, stepping inside. Didn't know we were inviting an audience. His gaze landed on Nora, and in that instant his brows lifted, not in recognition, but in smug amusement. We bringing cleaning staff into executive meetings now, he added lightly. Very progressive. Very 2025. Daniel didn't react. Sit down, Lucas. Grant lifted an eyebrow, but obeyed. Lowering himself into the chair opposite Daniel's desk, he crossed his legs, completely relaxed. You look terrible, Dan. Long night? He asked, smiling. I almost made the worst decision of my life, Daniel replied evenly. Then I hope you didn't go through with it, Grant said, chuckling. Daniel slid the bankruptcy folder toward himself, opening it with deliberate calm. Funny thing, he said. I reread everything this morning. Something felt off. Grant's eyes flicked from the folder to Daniel's face. Daniel continued. You told me we were $64 million in the hole, but when I did the math myself, it came out 47. Lucas blinked once. Must be a typo, Dan. 17 million is one hell of a typo, Daniel replied. I'll have legal double-check, Lucas said smoothly, brushing invisible dust from his pants. You've been under insane pressure. Easy to misread a column. Daniel slid the sticky note across the desk. I didn't catch it, he said. She did. Grant's eyes dropped to the yellow square. He read it twice. Something in his expression cracked for a heartbeat, then smoothed back into a smirk. "Cute," he said. "Some janitor's prank." Nora's stomach twisted. "She's not a janitor," Daniel snapped. "She's the reason you aren't already in handcuffs." Lucas laughed, a sharp, empty sound. "You're taking her word over mine? I've been your partner 15 years, Dan. You know me." "And in those 15 years," Daniel said quietly, "you learned how to bury things so deep no one would notice." He nodded at Nora. She rose, knees trembling but voice steady. "I saw the file while cleaning," she said. "I know I shouldn't have looked, but the numbers felt wrong. I've seen enough overdue bills to recognize when totals don't line up. I checked the math 3 times. It wasn't a typo." Lucas's lip curled. "So the help is running financial audits now?" He scoffed. Nora met his eyes. "No, sir. I just didn't want to watch someone get conned the way my father was." That quiet spark inside her flared into something fierce. The room went still. Daniel stood, shoulders squared, calm, but solid. "I checked the security logs," he said. "Only one person accessed this floor before 8. Nora." He gestured toward the screen behind him. "She also took photos of the pages. Want a look?" Lucas didn't answer. Daniel tapped a key. The monitor brightened. On screen, original documents appeared alongside altered versions, lines, amounts, digital signatures. Some matched, others did not. Then came the last creditor page, Meridian Supply Group, a company Daniel hadn't legitimately done business with in over a decade. "You slipped them in," Daniel said quietly. "They destroyed her father, and you used them again." "Why, Lucas?" Lucas's jaw tensed. "This is insane." Daniel lifted another folder. "Karen came to me last night. She saved copies of your emails, the ones between you and a Tyler James, tied to that fake Meridian shell." "I know about the kickback," Daniel added. "You plan to force bankruptcy, buy our assets for pennies through that shell, then walk away clean." Silence swallowed the room. Finally, Lucas rose. "You think you can prove all that on a cleaner's word?" "No," Daniel said, straightening his jacket. "On your emails, her photos, and the security logs." Lucas's eyes narrowed, pinning Nora. "You think he'll even remember your name in 6 months?" he sneered. "You'll be back scrubbing floors for people who never look up." Daniel's voice dropped, icy. "Get out." Lucas didn't move. "The FBI is on their way," Daniel added. That made him flinch. Lucas grabbed his briefcase, spat something under his breath, and slammed the door behind him. The glass trembled. Silence rushed in. Daniel looked at Nora. "He was right about one thing," he said quietly. "I didn't know your name before today." Nora stared at the floor. "That's just how the world works, sir." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, that's how I worked, blind." Nora felt something shift in the room, like a heavy curtain lifting, not entirely, but enough to let AIR in, enough to breathe without apologizing for existing. The door's echo still hung like a gavel. Nora hovered in the center of the office, unsure whether to sit, speak, or disappear the way she always used to. The pressure in her chest still hadn't vanished, but it had changed, less suffocation, more weight of what came next. Daniel stood by the window, staring at the empty space where Lucas had been. His expression wasn't victorious, not even furious. He looked older, as if 10 extra years had settled on his shoulders in one brutal meeting. Finally, he turned. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Nora nodded once. "Yes, sir." He gestured to the chair facing his desk. Sit. She hesitated. I should probably get back downstairs. I still have 2 floors on my schedule. He lifted one brow. You're not going back to scrubbing toilets after this, he said. Her hands twisted together in her lap. It's fine, she murmured. I didn't do this for anything in return. I know, Daniel replied, but I also know what it cost you. Nora glanced at the dried fleck of blood on her sleeve. Startled, she hadn't noticed. My supervisor, Dalton. He thought I was snooping. Hit me across the face, said I was out of line. Daniel's features hardened, all warmth vanishing in an instant. You're telling me someone assaulted you on my property during your shift? She nodded slowly. He didn't speak for several beats. Then he picked up his desk phone with quiet authority and pressed a button. Karen, find Dalton. Have security escort him out immediately. He's done here. Then call HR. I want a full report on his record by noon. Daniel hung up and looked back at Nora. You didn't deserve that. Nobody does. People like me, she started, then stopped. He leaned forward slightly. People like you keep this place standing, he said. People like me just get our names etched on the glass. Nora swallowed. I still don't understand why you're being so generous. I didn't even sign the note. I wasn't supposed to be in your office. But you were, he replied, and you refused to walk past what you saw. You acted. That's more than I can say for a lot of folks I pay 6 figures. Her mind flashed to her small kitchen, overdue bills, eviction notices. To her daughter, Lily's hand-drawn picture on their fridge, their heater that rattled more than it warmed. This moment felt unreal, like a dream she was scared to wake from. I appreciate all this, she whispered. But I'm not one of you. I'm just a cleaner, an hourly paycheck. Daniel stood and retrieved a sheet of paper from his drawer, handing it to her. She looked down, confusion turning to disbelief, a formal job offer. Position, Junior Audit Analyst. Department, Internal Oversight. Monday, training provided. Salary, $4,150 a month. Full benefits, tuition assistance, child care credit. Her mouth fell open slightly. Sir, I can't take this, she breathed. Why not? He asked, genuinely puzzled. I don't have a degree, she said. Never worked in an office. I don't even know where to begin. Daniel's smile this time wasn't the polished press smile she recognized. It was smaller, tired, human. You think I was born signing billion-dollar deals? Everybody starts somewhere, he said. I'd rather start with someone who actually pays attention than another shiny resume with no spine. Tears burned behind her eyes. I don't want charity, she murmured. It's not charity, he replied. It's justice. The word hit her like a drumbeat. Justice. Not mercy, not pity, justice. You saw what no one else did, Nora. You connected the dots. That instinct is auditing, and you can't teach that. She wiped her forehead, still dazed. What about my daughter? She whispered. I'd need time. I can't afford daycare. I work weekends at a diner. My schedule is... We'll adjust around it, Daniel said. You tell us what hours you can manage. We'll make it work. She stared at the paper again. Her name sat at the top in bold letters, Nora Ellis. It looked different there, stronger, more permanent. I don't even know what to say, she breathed. Say yes, he answered simply. She looked up, still shaking. I'm scared, she admitted. He nodded. Me too. But you gave me a second chance today. Let me give you one. Nora cradled the offer like it might shatter. After a long, stretching silence, she whispered, Okay. Daniel extended his hand. When she shook it, It felt like more than a business gesture, like crossing a bridge, leaving one version of herself behind. "Take the rest of the week off," he said. "Be with your daughter. Rest. When you come back Monday, we'll get you set up. Diane Holt will be your mentor, sharp, patient, doesn't scare easy." Nora nodded, still stunned. "Okay, thank you." "No, Nora," he said. "Thank you." She left, clutching the offer like a lifeline. As she passed the reception desk, Karen looked up and gave her a real smile, not the polite, distant one Nora was used to. "Congratulations, Miss Ellis." Nora blinked. No one had ever called her Miss Ellis before. It settled over her like armor. She stepped into the elevator, heart pounding. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was polishing someone else's world. She was stepping into her own. The fluorescent hum felt familiar, but everything else had changed. By Monday morning, Nora stood in the main lobby of Reed Tower just before 8 a.m., dressed in the most professional outfit she could afford. A navy blouse from Goodwill, slacks a touch too long, black flats scrubbed clean with a toothbrush. Her hair was pinned back, held by Lily's small barrette. This time, she walked in through the front doors, not the service entrance, not the loading dock. The marble under her shoes gleamed like always, but she wasn't pushing a mop across it. Security guards at the front, who'd never looked twice at her before, nodded. "Morning, Miss Ellis," one said. Checking her new ID, she blinked. "Good morning," she replied. The badge felt stiff against her chest. Nora Ellis, Junior Audit Analyst, Internal Oversight. The words looked surreal. So did the floor-to-ceiling windows, the fresh flower arrangement by the elevators, the scent of espresso and high-end perfume. One hand held her small purse, the other gripped her tote with a notebook, 2 pens, and a used Chromebook. "Please let no one ask me anything today," she silently begged. The elevator dinged. She rode up with 2 men in sharp suits and a woman in red heels, busy on a Bluetooth call. They ignored her, which suited Nora just fine. The doors opened onto the 18th floor, and the view stole her breath. Internal Oversight occupied a glass-walled suite overlooking Lake Michigan. Morning sun poured over open workstations, dual monitors, whiteboards covered in codes and notes. No mops, no supply closets, just concentrated quiet and clicking keyboards. A petite woman in her early 60s with cropped silver hair waited near the entrance. "Miss Ellis?" she asked. "Yes," Nora said, straightening. "I'm Diane Holt, your supervisor. Welcome." Diane's voice was calm, handshake firm, eyes kind. Nora exhaled a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Thank you," Nora whispered. "We'll walk through the basics," Diane said, gesturing to a desk in the back corner. "That spot's yours. We'll set up your computer, email, then start system training this afternoon. I hear you've already demonstrated an impressive eye for detail." "I just noticed something that felt off," Diane nodded. "That's where every good investigation begins." The rest of the morning blurred. Passwords, logins, security prompts. Nora sat through orientation videos, watched Diane navigate custom software, and scribbled notes furiously, catching maybe half of what was said. By noon, her brain throbbed. At 12:10, Diane dropped 2 coffees on Nora's desk. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, Diane." Nora corrected herself. Diane smiled. "We don't stand on ceremony here." The coffee's aroma brought back memories of gas station cups, freezing parking lots before dawn shifts. "You're doing fine," Diane said. "Most new hires are drowning day one. You're treading." Nora laughed weakly. "Feels more like flailing." "Flailing still means you're fighting," Diane chuckled. "I've been here 16 years. Seen auditors with top-tier degrees miss a simple decimal. Daniel says you saw a pattern no one else did. Nora shifted. I didn't go looking, I just couldn't ignore it. Instinct, Diane said. Don't underestimate it. You'll learn tools, acronyms, procedures, but what you already have, you can't teach that. Nora stared out the window. Her tiny sliver of skyline view was hers. At 2 p.m., Daniel stopped by. No entourage, no jacket, just a white shirt and that calm, tired expression. Heads lifted. Nora, he said, how's the first day? She stood awkwardly. A lot to take in. Diane treating you right? He asked. She is, Nora replied. Daniel pulled a small envelope from his pocket. This came through payroll, training stipend. Thought I'd deliver it. Nora accepted it carefully. You didn't have to. I wanted to, he said, voice softening. My dad was a school custodian 30 years. Nobody ever told him thank you. Figured it's about time someone heard it. Nora blinked. Thank you, Mr. Reed, she said. He nodded and left as quietly as he'd arrived. Diane watched him go. 3 CEOs, she said. He's the first who remembered my daughter's name. Nora tucked the envelope into her purse, deciding not to open it until she got home. Hope felt safer sealed a bit longer. At 4:45, Diane passed by. Go home. You survived the first day. That's a win. Nora smiled, powered down, and left. Outside, the sun had dipped low, turning Reed Tower gold. Nora walked toward the bus stop, tote heavy on her shoulder. At home. Lily waited on the front steps, swinging her feet. Mama! She shouted, racing forward. Nora crouched, pulling her close. You're home late, Lily said. How was it? Nora pressed her cheek to her daughter's hair. Different, she said. Hard, but good. Do you have your own desk? Lily asked. I do. Your own chair? Yep, and my own login password. Lily gasped. You're fancy now. Nora smiled. Not fancy, baby, just finally seen. They went inside. The peeling wall paint and flickering kitchen light hadn't changed, but somehow the room looked brighter. Her tote by the couch felt like proof of something new. By Wednesday morning, Nora's third day. The office coffee machine hissed as she filled a cup. Her feet already ached, not from miles of mopping, but from nervous pacing. The 18th floor was a different world, clean, controlled, humming with quiet urgency. Everyone moved with purpose. Analysts wore sleek glasses, smartwatches, confidence. The air buzzed with keystrokes and muffled call voices. Nora threaded through it, observing more than speaking. She wrote everything in her floral notebook, the same one that once held Lily's homework lists and coupon math. Abbreviations, software names, compliance steps. They became a secret code she was determined to crack. Diane remained patient, but Nora could feel certain eyes on her, curious, cautious, not cruel, just calculating, like they weren't sure where she fit in the equation. At first, she thought she imagined the whispers. Then she heard them clearly. I heard she used to scrub the 24th floor. No degree, not even community college. Reed gave her a desk because she caught a typo. The words stung. By Thursday, the nickname surfaced. The custodial miracle. Nora overheard it in the break room from a woman with manicured nails and a frostbitten tone. Let's hope the custodial miracle doesn't audit my reimbursements, she joked. Quiet laughter followed, small but sharp enough. Nora didn't respond. She smiled politely, walked out, kept her posture straight. In the restroom, she locked herself in a stall, sat down, and just breathed, not crying, not yet, just breathing. She pictured Lily's drawing labeled "My Hero," taped on their fridge. Don't let them steal that from you, she told herself. The next morning, Diane dropped a thick binder on Nora's desk. "First challenge," she said, almost cheerful. Nora blinked. "What is it?" "Cross-quarter expense review for senior analyst Brian Keller. He asked for your input." "Me?" Nora asked. Diane nodded. "He insisted." It should have felt flattering, but when Nora glanced at Brian, a lean man with slick hair and the posture of someone always ready to lunge, she caught the glint in his eyes. This was a test, not a favor. She spent her weekend buried in that binder. After Lily fell asleep, Nora sat at the kitchen table with spreadsheets and receipts, travel costs, vendor invoices, reimbursements, all blurred until patterns emerged. A lunch for two in Miami on a supposed solo trip. Hotel charges split under two departments. A client meeting with no matching entry in any sales calendar. She highlighted each inconsistency, triple-checked dates, and cross-referenced internal memos. By Monday, she'd flagged 7 discrepancies, 4 serious. She slid the report onto Brian's desk. He flipped through it. Expression unreadable. "Quick work," he said dryly. "You sure?" "Positive," she answered. Pages 6 through 9 tie to internal logs. Brian never thanked her, but by mid-afternoon, HR called him in. By 3:30, security escorted Brian Keller out. No farewells. Diane appeared at Nora's desk later. "I reviewed your findings," she said. "You didn't just catch mistakes, you caught a pattern. That's rare." She hesitated, then added, "You should know. Procurement data's suddenly behind a firewall. I tried to pull 3 vendor reports this morning, access denied." Nora's stomach dipped. "They know," she whispered. Standing at the edge of the open office floor was Cassandra Hale, the CFO, immaculate in a deep emerald suit, pearls shining at her throat. Cassandra had the kind of presence that made whole rooms quiet. People whispered she'd once overseen 3 divisions at once and hadn't taken a sick day in over a decade. "I'd like a word," Cassandra said, voice cool and precise. Diane stiffened beside Nora. "You don't go anywhere without HR." "It's okay," Nora murmured, though her heartbeat pounded like a bass line. She followed Cassandra down the corridor, her own footsteps feeling several steps behind the CFO's precise stride, like she was always half a hallway late. They entered a small conference room, floor-to-ceiling glass, heavy blinds, no cameras blinking in the corners. Cassandra closed the door with quiet care. "Please," she said, gesturing. "Sit." Nora sat. Cassandra didn't. She circled the table slowly, like an instructor assessing a suspected cheater. "I've heard some interesting stories," Cassandra began. "Unapproved file pulls, late-night searches, secretive chats in storage rooms." "I haven't done anything outside my job," Nora replied, keeping her voice even. "Job descriptions are elastic here," Cassandra said. "You've stirred things up, Miss Ellis. Some think you're ambitious. Others think you're ignorant of the game." Nora met her eyes. "What do you think?" Cassandra's lips twitched. "I think you're someone who should tread lightly." Her tone never hardened, but the warning was unmistakable. "I'm just following the records," Nora said. Cassandra's faint smile stayed. So did whistleblowers who ended up exiled. Nora's hands tightened in her lap. "I appreciate curiosity," Cassandra continued. "But curiosity can turn into fixation. Fixation, unchecked, becomes paranoia." She moved to the window, opening a narrow sliver of blind so a band of light cut across the table. "This organization runs on precision, hierarchy, trust. Whatever you're doing, on purpose or not, shakes that balance. I'm not trying to destabilize anything, Nora replied. I'm trying to keep people from being hurt again. Cassandra turned. No one is being hurt, not anymore. The words hung between them. Then she slid a folder across the table. Nora glanced down, her custodial employment file. Old write-ups from Mr. Dalton. Employee found in unauthorized executive hallway. Nora looked back up. Cassandra's eyes were polished stone. You've come a long way, the CFO said, but this is far enough. The message was clear as a threat. Step back or be buried. Nora rose slowly. Are we finished? For now, Cassandra answered. Nora reached the door, then paused. You know what's wrong with silence? She asked. Voice trembling not with fear, but fury. It convinces people they're untouchable, until someone finally speaks. She walked out, every step sharper than the last. Diane waited just outside, arms folded. Well, Nora whispered, she knows. Diane nodded once. Then we stay ahead of her. That night, Nora dug out the old cardboard box she'd sworn never to reopen. It held what remained of her father's files, the ones she'd hidden after he died. Newspaper clippings, legal letters, a faded photo of the man who ruined him, Martin Crowe. Standing just behind Crowe at a 2002 shareholder dinner, young, pearled, Cassandra Hale. Nora's blood chilled. This wasn't only money, it was history, personal. She opened her notebook on a fresh page and wrote, Martin Crowe, 2002, Cassandra H. Our advisor, motive, cleanup. Underneath, she drew a line like a fuse, and beside it, 2 words, not finished. Sunday morning. Nora stood in front of her father's dented filing cabinet, the one she'd refused to sell even when rent was past due. It had sat in storage for years, collecting dust, a metal tomb she'd promised not to disturb. She hadn't planned to dig through the past again. She didn't want Lily inheriting that weight, but Cassandra's face beside Crowe's had blown the lock off that door. Her fingers shook as she turned the tiny key. The top drawer screeched open. Inside lay legal briefs. Letters addressed to J. Ellis from lawyers who never called back. A torn photo of her father on their porch, dated 1998, and one thick, yellowed envelope. To be opened if they come for you. Nora swallowed hard. Inside were 2 items. A flash drive and a single sheet in her father's handwriting. Crowe was only the front, it read. Follow the paperwork. They buried it deep, but not everyone knows it's still alive. Protect yourself. Monday. Nora arrived before sunrise, before Diane, before the early cleaning crew. In the quiet glow of her cubicle, she slid the flash drive into her laptop, heart racing. 3 files appeared. 1 audio recording from 2004. 2 scanned ledger PDFs. She clicked play. A rough, older man's voice filled her headphones. This is Joseph Ellis. If you're hearing this, I'm either locked up or gone. I stumbled into something I wasn't meant to see. My mistake was thinking it ended with Crowe. But Reed Industries, maybe even higher, this runs deeper, he said. Money disguised through fake vendors. Bribes hidden in development programs. Names you wouldn't expect. And I think they're using invisible employees, custodians, clerks as cover. People nobody watches, people like me. Nora's throat burned. If my daughter ever hears this, Nora, I'm sorry I didn't get out. But if you're where I hope you'll be, inside that tower, don't stop digging. Not for me, for whoever comes after you. The recording ended. She sat motionless. It wasn't just her father's voice, it was confirmation. Her suspicions weren't madness, they were inheritance. That afternoon, during break, Diane caught her near the vending machines. HR wants you, Diane said quietly. Asked for a meeting. Nora blinked. Did they say why? No, Diane replied. But it's not routine. I think someone's watching you closer now. Nora nodded. Yeah, she said softly. I can feel it. Before the meeting, she printed the 2 ledgers from the drive, slipped them into her purse. She didn't intend to show them, just needed to feel their weight. Solid proof she wasn't imagining things. Inside HR, the atmosphere felt too warm, smiles too careful. Just a check-in, the woman across the desk said, lips stretched. We've noticed some unusual access attempts from your account. Nora kept her voice calm. I'm reviewing vendors. That's literally my role. Of course, the woman replied. But maybe narrow your focus. Stay within your assigned sectors. We wouldn't want confusion. Muzzle, Nora thought. Understood, she said aloud. May I ask who raised the concern? The smile didn't budge. We can't share that. Back at her desk, a sticky note waited from Diane. CFO pulled all audit trace logs from last 2 quarters. Something's being scrubbed. Nora stared at the note. Cassandra wasn't just watching. She was erasing. That night, Nora texted an old friend, someone who'd fixed servers while she mopped boiler room floors, Jared Miles, former IT tech. He still owed her one. They met at a greasy spoon outside the city, safely away from corporate eyes. Nora Ellis in a blazer, Jared said, surprised. She managed a small smile. Didn't expect it either. They traded updates over pancakes and weak coffee before she cut to the chase. I need to recover deleted system logs, she said. Audit trails, secure files, anything scrubbed. He frowned. You realize that's... I know, she interrupted. But if I don't, everything my dad died trying to expose disappears again. Jared hesitated, then sighed. Still take your coffee black? He asked. Always. He nodded. All right, I'm in. They shook hands under the table, an unspoken pact renewed. The next day, Nora walked into Reed Tower with something she hadn't had before, a plan. Step 1, stall HR. Step 2, slip Jared into the system. Trace the final link between Cassandra, Crow, and the post-Grant Shell networks. If she went down, she'd go down swinging. Jared entered Reed Tower as Frank Mercer, an outside compliance technician brought in for a quiet systems assessment. His temporary badge scanned flawlessly thanks to a back-end request Nora had filed days earlier. Per Diane Holt. Urgent audit, QA. No one questioned it. Not with that phrasing. He wore a blazer over a hoodie, carried a beat-up laptop, and kept his eyes low. It was 7:42 a.m. The building hadn't fully woken up. Nora met him at the freight elevator. Nice place, he muttered. Smells like fear. She gave a nervous half-laugh. You've got 30 minutes, she whispered. Server room's on 12. I'll keep Diane busy if she comes early. Jared cracked his knuckles. Still sneaking through service corridors, huh? She handed him a small USB. This holds the logs my dad saved. If you can cross-match them with erased vendor paths. I get it, he said gently. Watch the hall. He vanished into the steel corridor. Nora's hands trembled, not from terror, but from brutal focus. Each minute thudded in her ears. Upstairs, her monitor glowed with a blank expense form as camouflage. She draped her blazer over the chair so it looked like she'd just stepped away. At 8:06, her phone buzzed. Jared. Partial logs recovered. Cassandra's ID used backdoor audit tools. Hidden vendor code, RAV7. Ring any bells? Nora stared at the text. RAV. Reed Asset Ventures. Check cross-department payouts, she typed. Any trails outside procurement? His reply came seconds later. RAV-07 routes shell payments through diversity initiatives, but money lands in dead LLCs. What matches your dad's note? Harbor Ridge Partners. Nora's pulse stumbled. That name was circled twice in her father's folder. She typed, "Pull everything, backdate where possible, then erase your footprints." Jared responded, "Already scrubbing, but Nora, this is deep. If they catch you, this won't just cost a job. People vanish over this." She didn't answer. She already knew. At 8:13, Diane walked in. "Nora," she called. Nora stepped into view like she'd just returned from the kitchen. "Morning." "Was just grabbing coffee," Diane said, smiling. "Big day. Legal wants you at 11. They want your insight on post-Keller protocols." "Test or trap?" Nora wondered. "Sure," she said lightly. "I'll be ready." Her phone buzzed again. Jared, 87% downloaded. "Need 5 more minutes. You okay?" "Nora, I'll buy you the time. Just get out clean." Then Cassandra stepped onto the floor, hair immaculate, pearls gleaming. She moved straight toward Diane's office. The two women spoke in low tones, then disappeared behind a closed door. Nora's stomach knotted. She texted Jared one word, "Now." 2 minutes later, Jared, done. Files secure, no logs left. Taking elevator out. Nora rose casually from her desk and headed toward the hallway, feigning a vending machine run. When the freight doors opened, Jared emerged with his laptop bag slung over one shoulder. He didn't slow. As he passed, he slipped something into her palm. The USB felt tiny in her hand and impossibly heavy. At 10:55, she walked into the legal conference room. 3 people waited, 2 attorneys, 1 compliance officer. They offered practiced smiles, poured water, thanked her for coming, like this was a friendly lunch. Then came the questions. Have you accessed data outside your assigned areas? Do you recognize this log entry? Have you spoken with any former staff recently? Perhaps someone like Amanda Bryant? Nora answered carefully, calmly. She didn't lie, but she didn't hand them ammunition either. Finally, the senior counsel leaned forward. We'd like to remind you, Miss Ellis, that unauthorized system access, regardless of intent, can result in immediate termination. Nora met her eyes. And if someone authorized criminal fraud, does that end in unemployment or federal prison? The room froze. She stood. Thank you for your time. Outside, Diane waited near the door. Nora didn't say anything. She just pressed the USB into Diane's hand. Diane glanced at the label. Harbor Ridge, RAV-07 chain. Her jaw tightened. Is this everything? Nora nodded. No more theories. This is evidence, Diane exhaled. Then we go to Daniel. Not yet, Nora said. Diane blinked. Why? Because if he isn't already aware, he might be the only thing keeping this place from collapsing. I need to be sure first. That night, after Lily was asleep, Nora sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, papers spread. The pattern was undeniable now. Her father hadn't been ruined by bad luck. He'd been methodically silenced, and 20 years later, his daughter held the receipts. What she didn't yet have was a strategy. Thursday morning looked like any other. But Reed Tower felt altered. Nora sensed it the second she stepped off the elevator. The atmosphere was tight, conversations clipped, glances quickly averted whenever she neared. Even the custodial crew, her old squad, gave brief nods and hurried on. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was a signal flare. Diane met her by the coffee machine. He knows, she whispered, handing Nora a file under the pretense of small talk. I sent the drive to Daniel's secure inbox at 3 a.m. He opened it at 4:17 from his home IP. Nora's pulse kicked. What did he say? Nothing, Diane replied, but he asked to see you. Nora's stomach dipped. When? Now. They rode in silence to the 26th floor, a place reserved for a very small circle. Nora had never cleaned up here, never even peeked in the doorway. This wasn't just executive territory. This was Daniel Reed's inner ring. The doors parted with a muted chime. The carpeting was deep navy, the walls lined with art, the air smelling faintly of cedar and old smoke. His office sprawled at the end, glass, steel, yet unexpectedly warm with books and photos. A wall of framed pictures, a worn leather chair beside a globe, and at the window, in a charcoal suit, stood Daniel. He didn't turn right away. Do you like tea, Miss Ellis? He asked. Nora blinked. Yes, sir. He nodded, then gestured toward a small table by the fireplace. A silver tray waited with a porcelain pot and 2 cups. She sat carefully. He poured the tea himself. No assistant, no show. Just the billionaire and the ex-custodian turned analyst. I went through everything, he said finally, settling opposite her. The files, your father's recording, every line of that report. Nora gripped her cup. I'm not here to threaten you, she said. I just needed you to see it. I did, he replied, and I should have known long before now. She looked up sharply. He didn't flinch. I remember Joseph, Daniel continued, meticulous, soft-spoken. He greeted everyone at the front desk by name, even me. I was told he resigned quietly after Crow left. He didn't, Nora said, voice low. He was humiliated, blacklisted. We almost lost our home. Daniel stared at the table, jaw tight. That's on me, he said. Silence stretched. Finally, Nora slid a sheet across to him, a list of still active shells. They're draining funds from your own compliance budget, she said. He didn't reach for it. I believe you, he answered, and I believe Cassandra Hale is dangerous. She's been steering this longer than I wanted to admit. Nora exhaled slowly. So what happens now? He leaned in, hands clasped. You and Diane will quietly build a comprehensive dossier. Every name, invoice, signature. We bring it to the board, not legal, not yet. I want the directors to see it before anyone buries it again. Nora hesitated. And Cassandra? A faint, hard smile tugged at his mouth. She'll tie her own noose. She just needs the correct rope. Then his face sobered. But this will get uglier. There are people here who'll shield her because she enriched them. Are you prepared to be the reason some of them fall? He asked. Nora met his gaze. My father died chasing the truth. I won't let his story end unfinished. Daniel nodded once. Then we finish it. As she stood, he added, Nora? She turned. I was wrong before, he said. You weren't hired because of some miracle. You were hired because you refused to look away. She left with the tea's warmth lingering in her chest. That evening, at home, Lily tugged her sleeve. Mom, what are you thinking about? Lily asked. Nora smiled faintly. A rope, she murmured. And the truth. The following week unfolded like a chess match. Every movement deliberate, every email, hallway glance, and printer run planned 3 moves ahead. Nora and Diane spent late nights locked in a records room on 19, cross-checking every payment, approval chain, and contract touching the shell companies. Harbor Ridge, Rava 7, Clearwater Advisory, Nova Century, 4 entities sharing invoice patterns, quietly redirecting millions from compliance and outreach budgets. "Here," Diane said, tapping a line. This allocation was supposedly for an inner-city youth hiring program. They even produced a press release. Nora shook her head. "I remember that flyer in the break room. We all felt proud. Nothing ever happened." Diane's mouth thinned. "That's the trick. Cassandra didn't just steal. She wrapped the theft in charity. 6 days later, they had the finished report. 58 pages, 6 appendices, dozens of source links, screenshots, statements, timestamps. They handed it to Daniel in person. He skimmed the first several pages, then closed the binder gently. "This could gut this company," he said quietly, "and save it." Nora had one more request. "I want to talk to her," she said, "to Cassandra." Diane frowned. "Why?" Daniel hesitated. "What for?" Nora's eyes didn't waver. "Because sometimes the only way to end a story is to let the villain write their last line themselves." 2 days later, Nora stepped into the 24th floor boardroom, one of the building's most tightly controlled rooms. A long walnut table stretched between glass walls, leather chairs on either side, a wall of silent displays waiting for a presentation that wasn't coming. Cassandra sat at one end, pearl earrings, dark blazer, composed as still water. She didn't stand. "You requested this meeting," Cassandra said without lifting her gaze. Nora took the seat across. No laptop, no notes, just the weight of everything she'd learned. "I wanted to give you a chance to explain," Nora said, "before this goes wider." Cassandra gave a soft laugh. "Public?" Nora nodded. "The board gathers tomorrow. Daniel's calling for a full investigation." "Daniel," Cassandra murmured. "The man who once overlooked millions misallocated under his watch." Nora's tone stayed steady. "He's owning that now, correcting it." Cassandra finally looked up, eyes sharp. "Do you honestly believe taking me down rewrites this place, this system? I didn't engineer the decay. I learned how to survive inside it." "That's our difference," Nora replied. "You embraced the rot. I refused." "You're a cleaner who got lucky," Cassandra scoffed. "No," Nora said. "I'm a cleaner who finally started paying attention and refused to stop." Cassandra's smile slipped. "I've watched you for months," she said. "Too tidy, too agreeable. I assumed someone else was moving you." "I'm nobody's pawn," Nora answered. "But you were a signal." Cassandra stood, walking to the window. "I was 32 when I realized power would never be handed to me, so I took it. Every shell company, every shift. I did it to build something for people like me." Nora rose too. "People like us don't construct legacies on stolen lives." Cassandra turned slowly. "You're not prepared for what happens next." "I am," Nora said. "And if you were the woman you pretend to be, you'd walk into that boardroom and confess." Cassandra stayed silent. Nora moved to the door. Before opening it, she said, "For what it's worth, my father remembered you, said you always said the right things. Until you stopped showing up, you didn't disappear. You just moved upstairs and shut the curtains." Behind her, the quiet felt heavy. Then Cassandra's whisper floated across the room. "I'm not the only one behind those curtains, Miss Ellis." Nora paused. "Then I'll just keep pulling them back," she said, and walked out. The next morning's board meeting felt like a courtroom. Nora stood behind Daniel, who now sat at the table's head. Diane and 2 internal audit leads beside him. Cassandra sat at the far end, expression unreadable, posture perfect. Around them, 12 directors, investors, legal advisors, senior partners, people whose personal wealth could rival small countries sat unusually still. Daniel began calmly. "We're at a crossroads," he said, resting a hand on the thick report. "What you're about to hear will disrupt assumptions. Ignoring it would be the real danger." He nodded toward Nora. "Miss Ellis." Her palms were cold as she stepped forward. "My name is Nora Ellis. Some of you know me from the custodial staff, others from audit. I've worked here over 8 years. I've scrubbed your floors and reconciled your numbers." A faint rustle moved through the room. "I'm not here with accusations," she said. "I'm here with documentation." She clicked the remote. The screen lit with vendor logs, transaction paths, shell entities, then names. Harbor Ridge, Rav7, Stoneworth Logistics. Each payment traced, each signature matched. She told the story plainly, voice steady but charged. Internal theft, misused diversity money, kickbacks disguised as consulting. For the last 3 minutes, her father's recorded voice filled the room. "They used our invisibility," his voice crackled. "Didn't expect us to notice." When it ended, silence pressed in. Daniel finally spoke. "We'll open the floor." The pushback came fast. "This is conjecture," one director snapped. "Cassandra's been here 20 years, another said. "We don't discard loyalty overnight." "Where's proof she authorized this?" someone asked. "She did," Diane cut in, raising. "Any disbursement above 100,000 needed dual sign-off. We have timestamps, her initials, login metadata. Plus, vendor accounts linked to her niece's name and former address," Nora added. "The money flowed into her personal holding company." Cassandra stayed quiet. No denial, no outrage. She waited until the room's arguments wound down, then stood. "I won't insult you by suggesting those documents are fabricated," she said. "I did what's shown there. I used the breaks in the system." "Yes, I benefited," she continued. "And so did some of you. Bonuses, accelerated approvals, projects pushed through. I didn't operate in a vacuum." She looked at Daniel. "If you want a spotless house, you'll have to clear more than one office." She sat, hands folded. Silence settled again. Daniel spoke slowly. "We're not here to hurl blame blindly," he said. "We're here to choose a path." He scanned the table. "All in favor of immediately suspending Cassandra Hale pending full external investigation?" Hands rose. 1, 2, 4, 8, 11. Daniel paused, then lifted his own. 12. Cassandra didn't flinch. She stood, nodded once, and walked toward the exit. At the doorway, she glanced back at Nora. "There will be others," she said. "They'll arrive smiling." Then she was gone. The board filtered out slowly, some silent, some offering brief nods toward Nora and Diane. One man murmured, "Took guts," before disappearing. Back in Daniel's office, Nora stood by the window. "You did it," Diane said behind her. "We started it," Nora answered. Daniel walked in moments later. "You just saved this company," he said. "I didn't do it for the company," Nora replied. His faint smile said he understood. He held out a folder. "What's this?" she asked. "Your promotion," he said. "Director of Internal Oversight, full benefits, your own team." Nora opened the folder slowly, reading her name at the top. "Thank you," she said. "But I have one condition." "Name it," Daniel replied. "I want a mentorship program named after my father," she said. "For overlooked staff, custodians, cafeteria workers, night security, anyone who dreams of more." Daniel extended his hand. "Done." They shook, and Nora finally allowed herself a full breath. She looked out at the skyline. "She said there'd be others," Nora murmured. "Let them come." 2 days after Cassandra was escorted out, Nora felt a new kind of pressure. Not obvious, not loud, like a draft sneaking under a locked door. First, the elevator. She pressed 19, the panel flickered, all buttons going dark before crawling upward, stopping on wrong floors without opening. The next morning, her ID badge failed. She waited at the turnstiles until Diane came down to override. "System glitch?" Diane asked, frowning. "Or a warning," Nora muttered. That evening, in the underground garage, her footsteps echoed too loudly. It was late. She thought she was alone, until she heard another set of steps fall in behind hers. She turned. "Hello?" No answer. She kept walking. Keys threaded between her fingers like makeshift claws. Every shadow seemed too deep. Her car waited in row D, silver paint catching weak light. She reached for the handle. "You've made some powerful enemies," a voice said behind her. She spun. A man stood at the edge of the shadow, early 60s, tan coat, lined face. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, raising both hands. "Just to talk." "Who are you?" Nora demanded. "Used to be in compliance," he replied. "Got pushed out when I started asking the wrong questions." She kept her grip tight on the keys. "Name?" "Ethan Rowe," he said. It sounded vaguely familiar. "I was part of a whistleblower group back in 2012, Ethan continued. "We tried to expose Crow before the merger. They buried us with NDAs, threatened pensions, families." Nora stepped back. "Why tell me this now?" "Because you made real noise," he said, "and people are finally hearing it." He took out a USB slowly and held it out. "This is everything we were too scared to release. Payroll fraud, kickbacks, laundered developments. Some of the names in your report are only surface." "Why now?" Nora repeated. "Because Cassandra wasn't the top piece," Ethan said. "She was a mid-level piece. Someone above her allowed it all, maybe still does." Nora glanced at the drive in her hand. "I don't know if this thread can keep being pulled without snapping." Ethan's eyes hardened. "Then don't pull," he said. "Cut it." He turned and faded back into the garage shadows. Nora drove home with the Lily's car seat in the back and a storm building behind her ribs. At home, Lily slept. The apartment was quiet. Nora plugged the new drive into her personal laptop. Folders bloomed across the screen. Old names resurfaced. Familiar lies wearing new labels. One folder grabbed her attention. Read transfers. 2009-2014. She opened it. Her mouth went dry. It wasn't just Cassandra. Payments traced directly to Daniel's brother, Andrew Reed, who'd served on the board until 2015. Accounts in Zurich, real estate projects that never happened, and on one document, Daniel's signature, dated 13 years earlier. Nora leaned back, stomach twisting. What if he'd known the whole time? What if this was all an elaborate cleanup, and she was just the one holding the broom at the end? Her phone buzzed. A text from Diane. "You okay? Jared says your access logs are being reviewed again. Someone's phishing." Nora didn't respond. For the first time since everything began, she wasn't sure who, if anyone, she could fully trust. She looked toward Lily's bedroom door, then at the drive glowing in the USB port. The queen had fallen, but the king, if there was one, might still be moving pieces. Monday, the sun rose, but Reed Tower felt colder than before. Nora walked in with her chin up, badge finally working again, thoughts spiraling. Every familiar face was a question. Who knew? Who kept quiet? Who watched her moves now? The elevator to 19 ran perfectly. Too perfectly. On her desk waited a sealed envelope. No return address, just her name typed neatly. She opened it. One line on crisp ivory paper. Be careful which truth you believe you're holding. No signature, no hint, just that. She looked up as Diane entered. I need to talk, Nora said quietly. They stepped into the records room. Nora pulled out Ethan's drive. This isn't finished, she whispered. It goes deeper, years deeper. Diane's brows knit. What did you see? Board-level laundering, Nora said, including a signature that looks like Daniel's from 2010, approvals for shell donations, land deals, offshore accounts. Diane went pale. You think he's involved? I think he was, Nora answered. Maybe still is, or maybe he changed, but I need certainty. They stood in heavy silence. You need Jared again, Diane said finally. If someone's tampering with your log history, he can trace the source? Nora nodded. Set it for tonight off-site, that afternoon. Daniel summoned her again. His office looked the same, cityscape framed behind him, desk neat. But today, he sat instead of standing, hands interlaced. I hear someone approached you, he said evenly. Ethan Rowe. Nora didn't look away. Yes, he's been off the radar since 2016. Paranoid, angry about being pushed out, Daniel said, or truthful about what he saw. He studied her. You think I'm hiding something? I think everyone hides something, Nora replied, including me. He tapped a button. A chime sounded. A file opened on his screen. He turned it toward her, her father's personnel record, blacked out lines everywhere. Internal notes from compliance. One email from November 2004. Ellis continues unapproved vendor reviews. If he persists, recommend full access suspension. Nora's jaw clenched. You knew? I learned 3 days ago, Daniel said quietly. When I started pulling old records after your report, I didn't realize Joseph was flagged as a problem, that he'd tried to report Crow. Then why call his exit voluntary? Nora asked. Daniel's eyes darkened. Because someone made it look that way. She paced. You signed off on land deals in 2010 through Andrew's entities. I saw the paperwork. Daniel stood. And you think I profited? I think I need answers before I keep betting everything on you, she said. His voice firmed. I signed those documents, he admitted. I was younger. My brother said they were philanthropic fronts, ways to expand community projects. When I found out he'd funneled money out, I forced him off the board. He exhaled harshly. You think I haven't paid? My marriage ended. The board barely trusts me. And now, because of what you uncovered, I might finally fix what I should have stopped 15 years ago. Nora searched his face. He didn't blink. I'm not your enemy, but if you decide I am, walk away. I won't block you. Silence stretched. I don't know what I believe yet, Nora said at last, but I know where the truth will be, in the logs. That night, she met Jared at a rented co-working space off Ashland. I scanned your recent activity, he said. Someone mirrored your logins, private terminal, executive floor. Device fingerprint matches Daniel Reed's office. Either he's watching your every move or someone's using his credentials. And there's more. The people no one sees can change everything. If you're in your 60s or 70s, you've probably learned a hard truth. The world runs on the backs of people no one notices. For decades, you may have watched janitors, cafeteria workers, night shift guards, and clerks hold a building together, while executives walked past without a glance. Nora was one of those people. She pushed a cleaning cart. wiped fingerprints off glass, and tried to stay out of the way. Yet, when a billionaire CEO was about to sign away his life's work, it wasn't the lawyers or the board who saved him. It was the woman with the mop. She noticed the numbers didn't add up. She remembered the name of the company that ruined her father. She cared enough to pull out a pen, do the math, and leave a simple sticky note. For older Americans who spent a lifetime feeling overlooked, this story is a quiet reminder. Being unseen does not mean being unimportant. Your eyes, your memory, your conscience still matter. Sometimes the person at the very bottom of the ladder is the one who keeps the whole structure from collapsing. Courage and conscience. Don't retire. As we age, many of us are told, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently, to stay out of trouble, keep your head down, or let the younger folks handle it. But if you've lived through layoffs, broken pensions, shady deals, or bosses who got away with too much, you know that silence often protects the wrong people. Nora's father died with a broken heart, after trying and failing to expose corruption. Years later, his daughter stood in the same kind of fire. She was slapped by a supervisor, threatened by powerful people, and quietly warned to tread lightly. Any reasonable person in their 60s would tell her, "Walk away, it's not worth it." And yet, the story shows us something older Americans already know deep down. A clear conscience is worth more than any paycheck. Whether you're 35 or 75, courage is not a young person's game. It is a decision. Nora kept digging when systems told her to stop. She asked questions, pulled old files, enlisted help, and refused to pretend she hadn't seen what she saw. For those of you who have stood up to bosses, landlords, or officials in your own life, her journey might echo your own. The cost is high, but the price of looking away is higher. Our legacy is who we lift up, not what we accumulate. By the time someone becomes a billionaire CEO, most people assume the story is over. The man on the magazine cover is the finished product. But if you've lived long enough, you know that character is tested all the way to the end. Daniel Reed had signed bad documents years earlier. He trusted the wrong people. He looked away from workers and numbers that didn't touch his world. When the truth finally surfaced, he stood at a crossroads familiar to many older adults. Hide what you've done, or make it right while you still can. He chose the harder road. He believed Nora, fired abusive supervisors, confronted corrupt partners, and risked his reputation in front of his own board. Most importantly, he used his power to lift up the very people the company had ignored, starting with Nora. Many of you think about what you're leaving behind, not just savings, but stories, values, and chances for your children and grandchildren. This tale reminds us that our legacy is not the size of the house or the balance in the bank. It's the people we reach back for. Daniel honored Nora's father with a mentorship program for overlooked workers. In doing so, he turned his guilt into something larger than himself. At 65 or 75, that might be the most important lesson of all. It is never too late to choose what kind of ancestor you will be. Friends, if Nora's journey and Daniel's choices spoke to you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever felt unseen at work or in your community, yet noticed something important that no one else did? Do you believe it's ever too late in life to stand up, correct past mistakes, or lift someone else higher, like Daniel did for Nora? Share your experiences and wisdom in the comments. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and share it with someone you care about, so more people can gain strength and hope from stories like this.